Okay, Jane briefly is an Austrian journalist. She filed criminal charges against the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and several high-ranking government and corporate officials concerning what she is considering bioterrorism. And she filed the charges with the FBI, and I guess she was also fired from her job as a European correspondent to the Renewable Energy World website, it looks like. So, Jane, maybe you can take it from there.
Yes, can I just say I'm actually an Irish national. I have an Irish passport. My mother was Irish, so
wonderful.
I just wanted to make that clear. But my dad is Austrian, and I live in Austria. Yes, if I can just wind back a little bit to what Bill was saying, he spotlighted, or threw the spotlight on the issue of the intent behind these vaccinations. And this was really the focus of my various criminal charges, and they started in April in Austria. I filed charges at the state prosecutor here in Vienna, and the police are investigating Baxter because Baxter was involved in activities that clearly showed a criminal intent. They were caught contaminating 72 kilos of vaccine material with live bird flu virus, a virus that was incidentally supplied by WHO, and then distributing it with a false label to 16 laboratories in 4 countries. And if it had not been caught by a lab technician in the Czech Republic, it would have sparked a pandemic. So the criminal intent of Baxter is, I think, quite clearly established by the facts, indeed, in the public domain. All I did was put them together. And that is why I think people are rightly concerned about this whole move by companies like Baxter, who have a huge influence on WHO and the World Health Organization, to force entire populations around the world to take these very vaccinations. And in advance, they have given themselves sort of immunity and all kinds of measures that mean that they will not really be responsible for the damage that they cause to people. And this is also a reason why people are concerned. If they were acting in good faith, you would think that they would have not gone to the trouble of removing these clauses that make them liable for damages and so on. But they have. If you look at the legal setup, these sort of protections have been hollowed out, and incidentally, WHO is in a position to acquire more or less control of all the national governments in the event of a pandemic being declared. So the big winners are WHO and Baxter and the other vaccine companies, and it was exactly this pair, WHO and Baxter, who were involved in Austria in nearly triggering a terrible pandemic in February. And this can be proven, and that's why the police are investigating. So I think people are very, very rightly concerned about whether this isn't, in fact, a big criminal enterprise at work being covered by the mainstream media, the corporate media, who is in the control of the same people who control the vaccine companies and who fund WHO.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a great summary, Jane. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you got involved in this whole story.
Well, it was just one of those, you were talking about the coincidences of the universe. But basically, Baxter, when it sent out this contaminated material, it sent it to a laboratory in the district in Vienna where I actually live. And in the local paper, there was a report about it because it wasn't reported in the mainstream media at all. There was almost total silence. But in the local paper, there's a little bit of a snippet about how the people who were working for that laboratory had to go to hospital to be treated preventatively for the bird flu. So it was clearly, because I've worked as a medical journalist with BMJ and Reuters Health and so on, I knew that this was a terribly significant event, and I realized that there should be an investigation or criminal charges being brought against Baxter at the very least for this, and nothing was being done. And after my neighbor kind of showed me this report, I began looking into it, and I saw that it was deliberately done, that these are high biosecurity level 3 facilities that Baxter has in Orton the Donau, which mean that you cannot accidentally mix this kind of material together and send it out irradiated. So I decided then, as a desperate measure, really, to file criminal charges. I couldn't get it through the media. The mainstream media is very controlled. I know that anyway. But I gave it a shot. I sent the story to the BMJ. They refused it. Lancet didn't get back to me. And so I saw no option except to try and file criminal charges to compel the authorities to investigate and identify the people who were responsible. And I did that in April against Baxter and Avia. And the police are investigating. I was summoned actually to the anti-terrorism unit here in Austria for an interview a couple of weeks ago, and I presented even more evidence incriminating Baxter and Avia. And as I continue to do this research, I realize that Baxter is just one element in this huge organized crime syndicate, of which WHO seems to play this sort of controlling role. Novartis, Sanofi, Pasteur, and so other are just other elements. And that's why I expanded the charges and filed a new set of charges with the FBI at the embassy of Vienna. And I believe in the meantime, people in America have kind of filed the same charges at their local police station and contacted their FBI to try and put pressure on the authorities to really investigate, what's going on here.
What kind of progress do you feel you've made, Jane? And what was the leading question here, what repercussions have you experienced in starting to take this action?
Well, obviously, I feel there has been tremendous progress made. People are now aware of the problem. The word has spread like wildfire, and the spotlight has been turned on the activities of WHO and Baxter. People are aware that there could be forced immunization in America and other countries in a very short time, that this could have all kinds of dangers, and they have to prepare for that now. So I feel there's been tremendous progress, and of course the police are investigating here. They haven't arrested anybody, but it's a very powerful organization, and I think they're a little bit kind of wary about tackling Baxter. So that's the plus side of it. Obviously it was, rather unpleasant to be fired from my job as a result of this, but I did kind of half expect it, and as far as I can see, my life as much in danger as anybody else's from this whole plan that is unraveling or unrolling before our very eyes, because even here in Austria, people can be theoretically, I believe, compelled to take the vaccination if WHO orders it in the event of a pandemic emergency. And even if you don't take the vaccination, very active vaccinating people will allow a more lethal mutation to emerge, which will then also affect people all around the world. So I'm also acting in self-defense. It's not just for other people. I'm also acting in my own defense.
What was the reason given to you, Jane, for being fired? What did they actually say?
Well, there was no reason given. I had my next couple of reports lined up, and suddenly I just got an email saying that they did not want me to continue with these reports. There was no reason given for it. I've been kind of working there for 2 years. I even won an award for my report from Renewable Energy World. So I can only assume that it is on the orders of Penwell, which bought up the magazine after I started working there. And this is a kind of magazine publishing company of the oil and military industrial complex. And obviously they realize that this kind of a campaign needs a certain amount of financial means. And if they can destroy the financial basis of your campaign, they can put a spoke in the wheel of it. And so I assume that's what they intended to do.
Well, that was very courageous of you, Jane. I have to say, considering you also seem to be well aware that you may be fired for taking the actions you did, and yet you went ahead. And so I do want to commend you for that. And Camelot commends you. What is going on